What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and to win, get past it and move on. No, but in all reality, I kind of expected some of what happened today. The just kind of the complacency, a little bit of laziness here and there. It's the week after the international break, so you kind of expect it to be just a little bit off compared to what we've seen before the international break. You have all that momentum, all of a sudden a week without playing for your club. You have to come back, get playing again with these players that you haven't seen in probably about a week and a half. So you expect it to be a little bit off compared to what we have seen. And it was. There were a few bright moments, there were a few really, really dull moments, and a few mistakes, a few amazing defensive plays. So overall, it was a very average game, but I think the fact that we still managed to pull off a win, the fact that we still managed to go to Middlesbrough and eke out a 1-0 win, it kind of tells you that it's where we should be. I mean, I remember 2 years ago under Mourinho when he first came back, well, second year that he was back, it was those games that you have to go to a difficult stadium, you have to go away, it's right after the international break sometimes, and you have to eke out that 1-0 win. You have to get in there, score that one goal, and then defend well for the rest of the match. And that's what they did. It's just, defensively, we didn't look as strong as we have been, but I mean, we still limited them to one shot on target, so it was still okay overall. Just, I guess it looked a lot scarier, and it was kind of making me think if this was a team that had better movement up top or had better, I guess, quality up top. Not that Middlesbrough don't have quality, but they don't have the quality of a team like Man City or a team like Arsenal, where the players that they have up top can really damage and hurt you if you aren't 100%. So just a few of those moments that I want to focus on. One was obviously the shot on target. It came in a run of play near the end of the second half where, for a majority of it, the biggest problem we had was we played around with it too much in the back, and on top of that, when we got it up, Costa and Hazard were not working hard enough to keep control of the ball and let us get out. So it was constantly get it up, they lose the ball, right back at us. Get it up, lose the ball, right back at us. Then we have the ball back there. Instead of just kicking it up, we tried to play around with it and then lose it, and they're right back at us. So this came within that little bit of play. Adama Traore, who pretty much we wanted to limit him as much as possible because he has the pace to put you to the sword if he gets the chance. But he had a run pretty much almost one-on-one with Courtois. David Luiz managed to get back. Azpilicueta was also getting back with him. The problem here is both of them are going with him. Cahill's coming across to mark him too. He did this a couple times in this game where David Luiz has stepped over. For some reason, he's stepping over too, and all of a sudden, on his backside, there's a man wide open. And sure enough, cross comes over. Negredo takes a touch. He doesn't even step to him right away. He kind of stands there for a second and then goes at him. And at that point, Negredo's already setting up a volley that thankfully Courtois saved. But it's still kind of like, what are you doing? He hasn't been bad, but he also has not. He doesn't have the quality sometimes. And it's moments like that where he's got it covered on the far side. You cover your man. He's not doing it. It's like he doesn't realize that. He's stepping across thinking, oh, I'm going to help out. No, we don't need you over there. We need you on your side. So stay on your side. And he's not doing it. And then whenever it does come across, he should be stepping to, putting instant pressure, not diving in, but don't let him have a free shot. He just stands there for a second. Now Negredo has a free shot. So I just don't understand why, I guess, Conte isn't seeing that, because it's not like he hasn't had these mistakes before. Even there are moments whenever he starts dribbling around in the back, or he cuts back and takes like 3 seconds to pass the ball, and you're just sitting there like biting your nails because what happened against Swansea? What happened against Liverpool? What happened against Arsenal? All these moments where he's dwelling on the ball too long, he's being really, really slow and lazy, and it gives away goals. And he's still doing it. And it's not like he stopped doing it over the past few games, it's just he's had better cover. Well, today, especially whenever Middlesbrough push so high up the field that if you do lose it, it's not just one on 1-on-2 with David Luiz back there. Now it's going to be 3-on-2 because they've also pushed up everybody else. So to lose it here is even more dangerous, and yet he still continues to play around with it. He still continues to be really slow with his passes. I don't know why. And especially because Terry's back to fitness, Zuma's coming back to fitness, Ivanovic can play there too. I don't understand why it's not like why he's not playing with more urgency. Why he's not playing with more like he has something to lose. Because it's almost like he feels like, I've got nothing to lose here. No, if you make more mistakes, I guarantee Terry will be in the next game, or Ivanovic. So that was the one real problem of the match, was just, and honestly, going down that side in the first half was where Middlesbrough had their best chances, because that's where all their speed is, and that's where our lack of speed is. On our right side, Azpilicueta and Moses, no chance of getting beat by speed there. On the other side, Cahill and Alonso, lack of speed. So Middlesbrough did well, I think, in the first half to attack that side as much as possible. But then for some reason in the second half, they started attacking the left side a bit more. And then on top of that, it was a lot more possession on our half because we kind of stepped off a little bit. So overall, as far as the other team, sometimes it's hard to really judge our performance because sometimes it's hard to look at the other team and be like, okay, well, they did this and they didn't do this. Today, it was very obvious what their game plan was. They wanted to attack that side, and in the second half, whenever they went a goal down, you could see it was just a lot of possession, pushing Chelsea back as far as they could, and really trying to just pound it in there. And unfortunately, their best chances in the second half came whenever Chelsea had a bit of possession, and then they had a counterattack. Because they should have realized going up in the air against David Luiz isn't going to work. That seemed to be their plan in the second half. Whenever they had all this possession, it was like, okay, get it out wide, cross it into Negredo, and every time David Luiz just heads it out. So it was kind of a little bit of failure in game plan there for them in the second half. But first half, I thought, they had their best chances in the first half. Obviously, the Negredo volley was the best chance overall, but a lot of their chances that looked dangerous were in the first half. So let's talk about individual performances. Courtois, he had to be called on near the end to make that save, and he also was put under a lot more pressure as far as, they pass it back to him, now he's got to play with his feet. So he was a lot more active than he was, obviously, against Everton, and he did well. He was a player that last season he had the height, and it felt like he's young, so maybe he's just inexperienced. But overall, it looked like maybe he lacked the quality to be that all-around good goalkeeper that you need back there. Somebody like Cech or somebody like De Gea. Well, so far this season, he's really proving it. I think today, because he had to play a lot more with his feet and less saves as far as that goes, I think he really showed that he has a lot of quality. So he's still young. He's still, I think, 24 or 25, so that's still young for a keeper. Most keepers peak near 30. So he's still got a lot of time to progress, still got a lot of time to become an even better keeper. It's exciting to watch him because you kind of think that in the back of your mind, like, he's still fairly young for a keeper. In the defense, obviously I've already talked about Cahill. I will say, even though he had those mistakes, he had an average game because those mistakes, you add them to some of the defensive blocks he had to make. There are a couple of times where Traore looks like he's in and he had to make a tackle or he had to block the cross. I think overall the good and the bad kind of balanced each other out, and he just had an average game. David Luiz, I keep going back and forth between David Luiz and David Luiz. I don't know. I've heard both. I'm just going to go with David Luiz because I'm American, so I like to call it how I see it, and it's David, whatever. But anyway, he had a good game. I think either a couple times where maybe he was a little bit undisciplined, and you could see that, but for a majority of the game, he was called upon to win the ball out of the air. They send it long to Negredo, there's David Luiz heading it away. They're sending a cross in, there's David Luiz to head it away. So overall, I think he had a very good defensive game and didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. So that's really important. Azpilicueta, I thought, had a lesser game than he has been having. Overall, still good, but I expect him to constantly make challenges and not get beat by strength or speed. Today he was getting beat a little bit, and some of that may be because he played for Spain on Tuesday, I think. So you can look at it and say, well, maybe it was just the international break affecting him, possibly, but overall, it was not as good as what I've come to expect out of him. So there was that, but you go up into the midfield, and this is where, honestly, I think a lot of our problems came from. Not attacking wise, but defensively, I think there's a little bit of lack of effort in the second half, mainly. In the first half, obviously, they worked really hard, but when it came to the second half, mainly for the last 15 minutes, you really look at why was Middlesbrough able to continually attack. A lot of it was because one, the midfield wasn't stepping to as quickly, and two, whenever it was coming out, the midfield had dropped so deep and weren't pushing up to help whoever was up top, and so there was this big gap. So whenever it gets set long, yes, Costa, Hazard, Pedro, whoever's up there, they should do a bit better at holding it up, but whenever they lose it, it should be the midfield stepping up, cutting off the passes to the Middlesbrough midfielders in front of the defense, but they weren't. They were still stuck back. Pass comes in, they're late stepping out, now all of a sudden plays it in, that player makes the run, they don't track them, and all of a sudden it's dangerous now. And now there's an open man in the box. So overall, I think Conte, Matic, I think they played okay. But I expect more. There are still moments where they're stepping in and winning the ball. I'm just like, thank you, this is why I'm glad we have them in there. But then there are moments where they're getting caught out or they're not pushing up enough. And it didn't really work as well today. And I think whenever those two aren't as effective, I think that's whenever a team tends to get more going forward. Whenever they are on and working well together, there's hardly any chances. We saw that against Everton, So individually, I would say Matic had a slightly better game just because there were more moments from him going forward as well. He had a couple great long balls to Pedro, I thought, or Moses sometimes. So I would say he did more going forward, but both of them defensively should have done a bit more as far as keeping Middlesbrough from constantly attacking us. On the wings, Alonso and Moses again, and both of them played well. I think Moses definitely had probably one of his better games again. The problem is that because Middlesbrough kept attacking the other side, he didn't have as much to do defensively. So it allowed him to get forward definitely more often, but, whenever you look at it defensively, Alonso had a lot more to do. So you got to see more of Moses going in the attack. Defensively, Alonso had to step back a lot because Adama Traore just kept pushing at him. Gaston Ramirez, he had the ball too, but a lot of the time Azpilicueta was already there, so Moses only had to just get back and kind of help out a little bit, put a little bit more pressure. So going forward, Moses, he was perfect. He made these great runs. Maybe a couple times a little bit of a wayward pass, but for the most part works really hard. Was benefited by the fact that Ramirez was not getting back defensively, so had a ton of room to run. Maybe if I had to have one gripe, I would say he probably should have had a little bit more as far as on goal, shots on target, because it felt like he was either mishitting his shot or he's hitting it across that maybe he could have taken a shot instead. So I don't know. He played well. He definitely did. I guess the final third is where I expect a bit more out of him. So anyway, Alonso, like I said, defensively did his work. Definitely looked a lot stronger defensively than he has been because, for the most part, I think we saw him going forward and doing well, and then defensively maybe getting caught out a little bit, maybe not as defensively minded. But today he definitely had to get back a lot more. He had to mark Adama Traore, and there were several moments where he's stepping in and intercepting a pass, which is what you kind of expect out of him. So I think overall he definitely had a better defensive game today than he has been having. Unfortunately, that coincided with the fact that he wasn't able to get up as much. He did have a couple moments when we had a lot of possession where he was up and he was hitting crosses in, but overall I think he was definitely held back in the defense a lot more. Going up top, Pedro and Hazard, and behind Costa again. Hazard definitely looked a bit slower and off the pace today than he's been. He's been a star in the past few games. Today, definitely didn't look up to the same level as he has been. And like I said, international break honestly probably took a lot out of him. Pedro looked good today. I think probably Not as good as Hazard, but good for him, I think. What I've expected out of Pedro recently is hard work to win the ball back, a lot of speed driving at the defense. But when it comes to that final ball, a lot of times he just lacks something. I don't know what it is because you look at his volley that hit the crossbar, you look at his shot that Valdez had to save. They're good shots, but they're not great shots. You think about, yeah, that's an almost goal. That's great. It was so close. But then you think about it, it's like, well, the first one Valdez saved, he probably could have put it towards the corner a bit more so Valdez didn't have the chance to get a finger to it. You look at his volley, you say, well, he probably should have drove it into the ground a bit more so it's not flying up towards the crossbar. So it's always something with him. It's always, that was good, but it could have been better. So that's what I expect out of Pedro. I think he worked really hard today, though. Maybe I'm trying to think. There was a moment where it just felt like he kind of started fading out of the game in the second half. I think it was probably right after that shot, the one that hit the crossbar. So overall, I'm pleased with him. I just wish he was a slightly better player when it comes to certain moments. Costa, he got the goal, but overall definitely not as effective as he has been. Maybe struggling with the injury that he got before the international break a little bit. But overall, I mean, just he could have done so much more for us. I feel like there are moments where he's got the ball, he turns a defender, and then he either slips in a pass too early, or there's a pass on, and then he takes another touch, gets the ball taken off of him. It's like he wasn't making the right decisions today. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure, like I said, injury possibly, but I was disappointed with the fact that I feel like he's a much better player than he showed today. I feel like he's world class, and today he was good. He was average. So I expect a lot more out of him. And let's see, I think that's about it as far as the starting lineup. Going to the subs in the second half, I thought maybe should have happened a bit sooner. There were several chances coming from Middlesbrough. You could see that the legs were lacking. There are a lot of players that looked tired, so I thought the sub should have happened a lot sooner. But, who am I to say? We won 1-0 today, so maybe I'm completely off. But Chalobah comes on first. I like that sub. Comes on for Pedro. Whenever that sub happens, most of the time it's Chalobah for Pedro, or if Pedro's already come off for somebody like Willian, Chalobah for Hazard. Most of the time when that happens, it turns the formation into more of a 3-5-2 with Matic, Conte, and Chalobah in the midfield, and then Costa and Hazard or Willian, whoever's up there, those two up top. I like that change because it sort of makes it a bit more defensively solid. Because like I said, Conte and Matic, they were having trouble really getting up in the attack, supporting those front three, and then also getting back and helping the defense. They were getting caught in between. So adding Chalobah in there just adds another body to sort of help balance that. You send one up, well, you still got two back. If you've got two up there, well, you still got one holding that space. So I feel like it helped them a bit more defensively. And you could see, as soon as he came on, the chances really started becoming a lot more outside the box chances. They had to take their shots way out there, and most of the time they're mishit shots. So I feel like it did help solidify the really dangerous chances and made them more half-dangerous chances. Second sub to come on, Ivanovic for Moses. Didn't really understand it at first, but then I started realizing you want Ivanovic to stay in the team a bit, just in case you need to have him in there. So you want to keep his legs moving, you want to keep him going. The only problem I have with it is, if I were to take out either Moses or Alonso, I would prefer Alonso, just because Moses was playing so well. But then again, you really think about it, and like I was saying earlier, Alonso had a better defensive game because that's where a majority of the attacks were coming from. Moses was having a really good attacking game, but didn't really have to do much defensively. So putting Ivanovic on for Moses kind of makes it more defensive now. So I understand it. I'd prefer the other. And then, of course, the last one was just kind of a time-wasting, get Oscar on for a few minutes for Hazard. Which, at that point the game was it was pretty much done and dusted. The chances were becoming a lot more desperate. There were less chances overall. I mean, a lot of them were just attacks that were going, and then they were outside the box and not able to get inside. So overall, I mean, it's really hard to say either this was a good game or this was not a good game. It was just kind of a bit of both. There were moments, like I said, there were moments of brilliance. There were a couple shots that were just amazing. I mean, the first minute of the second half, it looked like they could have easily had a goal. And it just, that one little moment that in some of the games have been going for them, in this one, it didn't happen for them. So it was a bit unlucky as far as the attacking aspect. There were several moments that felt like it could have easily been 3-0. But then defensively, there were moments where great defensive moments and then not so great defensive moments that end up with either a mishit shot or the one where Courtois has to make the save. So it was overall an okay performance. But I think based on the fact that, one, you're playing away, so that already kind of takes a bit out of you. The fact that Middlesbrough Stadium, I don't really know much about Middlesbrough. Obviously, one of the most difficult places to play is Stoke. But you could listen to the crowd. You could listen to everybody in the stands. It was a great atmosphere for Middlesbrough. And honestly, in the first half, whenever it was like the first 10 minutes, it felt like every single time they would even have a slight chance of attack, it sounded like the crowd was just constantly at their backs, constantly behind them, trying to push them forward with the noise. So it is a scary atmosphere if you're coming there as an away team. But overall, I think the biggest problem they had was the international break. You know, Middlesbrough didn't really have a whole lot of players going out on international break. Pretty much the entire first 11, aside from maybe Pedro. I don't know if he got called up, or Alonso. I don't know. But, I mean, a lot of these players, they had to go out and play for their country over the past week and a half. So it makes it difficult, one, to train because you only have a few days to prepare for this game after having not prepared with them, you know, playing in a completely different system for your country than you do for your club. Yeah, it's hard to get back into it after so long. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for that reason and just hope that maybe from here on out, you know, 1-0 win, we're top of the table. You know, it's motivation to go forward. It's motivation to say, okay, this wasn't a great win, but it was good enough to push us forward and get us through. And on top of that, I mean, you look at a lot of the teams yesterday. You've got pretty much all the top teams struggled. You have Arsenal, who tied Man U. You have Man City, who struggled against Crystal Palace. You have Tottenham, who really, even though they're undefeated so far, it's kind of like what I thought with Chelsea in the first few games. You know, we eked out a couple wins. We tied Swansea barely, and then we lost twice in a row. It's like that lit the fire under us. Tottenham, they keep eking out these ties and wins. I feel like that's just keeping them in that safe space of, oh, we're good for right now. And, you know, we play them next week, so hopefully they've still got that mindset coming in. And then, of course, you know, Liverpool tying against, who was it? Southampton. You know, so it's kind of a good boost for us, the fact that all these top teams are struggling, the fact that we did struggle but still managed to clean sheet, still managed to win away, and now we're top of the table. It's a boost for us. It's a boost of confidence. It keeps the players going. It keeps them really in charge of their own destiny. So I love that. I love the fact that they're continuing to just push forward. And it feels like it's a new era under Conte so far. I hope it continues. I hope it doesn't sort of drop off as we go on. But, you know, injuries, suspensions, all that stuff are possible. Hoping that doesn't happen, but fingers crossed. Looking forward to next week. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It's going to be an interesting game depending on, I guess, who shows up more, Chelsea or Tottenham. But, I mean, you got Tottenham, then you got Man City, two really difficult games back-to-back. I'm hoping we're 100% ready to go. So, let me know what you guys thought of this game down below. What did you like and dislike about the performance? Who do you think should have played, shouldn't have played? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future reviews, and I'll see you at the next game. Peace out.